everyone, and welcome to today's webinar brought to you by the Canadian Professional Sales Association. Today's webinar will focus on personal branding for sales, how to drive revenue by improving your online brand. Please note that you will be able to ask questions at the end of the session using the chat function. We'll try our best to answer all questions within our allotted time. Moderating our panel session is Martinez Jr, CEO and social selling champion of M3JR Growth Strategies, startup advisor, and contributing writer for Huffington Post. Now, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Mario to start.
Great. Thank you so much. Rupin, can you hear me okay?
Everything's good.
Perfect. I am so excited to be here today with all of you guys. And today's topic is especially of interest to you as well as to me. And when we were thinking about some of the topics we wanted to talk about today with salespeople and marketers about the importance of branding and how you can brand yourself to actually grow your sales, this hands down was the topic to be able to come to the marketplace with and talk to you about. So I'm super excited to be here today with each of you. This topic specifically for me hits very, very close to home. And for those of you who have watched my story and watched me and what we have done over the last couple of years, I will tell you that 3 years ago, when I met folks like Jamie Shanks, who's here on our webinar, that I had no idea, nor did I plan on being where I'm at today and hosting programs like the CPSA's webinar today with you guys. And it's just been one amazing ride. And there's a blog article that we're coming out with very shortly, and people ask me, how did you do it? And I say the answer in one word, and that one word is branding. Now, there's also the delivery part of all services, but branding is really where it starts at in terms of how to grow your revenues, how to be able to connect with today's modern buyer. And I, as tradition has it, every webinar that I do, as well as every opportunity that I have to be able to speak, I always want people to walk away with one thing, just one thing that can give them something to think about. And in this case, we're going to talk about something related to branding. Now, what I want all of you guys to do, you're probably watching the screen right now, so thank you. What I want you to think about before I introduce our amazing panelists and guests is I want you to open up your browser and go to LinkedIn.com or use your mobile device, which is right here. And if you use your mobile device or your browser, please go to LinkedIn, and I just want you to type in the white search bar, Mario Martinez Jr. or Mario Martinez. It should be the first person to come up, and there's a red background. Now, when you do that, I want you to notice one thing. You're going to click on my profile, and as you're looking at my profile, I want you to notice something in my headline. Now, what I'm about to tell you is something that only probably 2 out of 10 experts will tell you that you should do this, and others will tell you that you maybe not want to do this. And I'll actually tell you the reasons why people say you may not want to do this. I want you to notice that my headline is in all caps. Now, many people say from a reading perspective that when you write something in caps, you're yelling at someone. And that would be very true if you had just one portion of my headline as in caps, okay, or in one portion in caps, excuse me. But in my case, we have everything all in caps. Now, I worked with a branding firm, and the branding firm's research identified that if you put your headline in all caps, what it will do when someone searches on a word that pulls up your profile in that search, it'll actually give you more screen real estate. Now, if you want some additional tips on that, email me, and I'll give you some more information on that. But in reality, the reason why we do things like all caps is not because we're trying to scream at anybody, but because we're actually trying to take up more real estate. So the reason why you don't want to do it is because some people may think that you're screaming. So I'll tell you both sides of the branding side, of the branding story, if you would. And that's one thing I want you to take away from today is one tip for personal branding. At the same time, feel free, guys, to go ahead and connect with me. And you can put on here personal branding rocks on your personalized connection invitation. All right, so that's your personal branding tip for the day. And I want to get into the real meat of today's discussion. And the folks that we have here on today's webinar, I cannot be more excited to have them here with me. I've got with me, first we're going to introduce my friend, the amazing, the wonderful, the beautiful Lori Richardson. She's the CEO of Score More Sales, and one of the things that is very unique about Lori is that she has, without a doubt, established herself as a thought leader, but as a woman in thought leadership. And she is also the president of the Women Sales Pros, which this is one thing that we need to see is more women in sales and more women in marketing leadership positions. And Lori, I'm behind your cause 100%. So Lori, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mario. It's great to be here with you and Jamie.
Awesome. Well, so Lori, let me start out with asking you a question. Could you just do us a favor, introduce yourself to our audience, and one thing, I want you to tell us one thing. What was the first thing that you did this morning when you woke up?
Well, I have a series of things I do. Do you want to hear about the series or the very first thing?
Whatever you like, my dear. We've got a few minutes.
It starts the same way. Teeth, coffee, bike, and shower. So brush my teeth, have a quick cup of coffee, then I do either bike or swim when I can. I live in New Hampshire, so sometimes the weather is not kind, and I stay in or do something nearby. And that's how I start my day. So I'm ready to go.
That's the secret.
Yeah.
That's the secret to success, huh? Okay, it's exercise. Brush your teeth first. Make sure you eat something, then exercise, and then go ahead and shower.
Yeah, and don't forget the coffee.
Oh, coffee. Exactly. Great. Fabulous, Lori. Thanks for sharing that with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how can people get a hold of you and or find out more information about you as we go through this program.
What I do, I'm different from Jamie in that I work with a broad realm of Salesforce development, the whole ecosystem, including sales leadership of the mid-sized companies and large SMB, small, medium-sized companies. And, I probably was more of known for branding earlier, but as things have changed for me, the branding piece is such a huge piece of it, and it always trickles down into working with sales leaders and working with sales reps themselves in building their brand. I can be found most anywhere on the web at Score More Sales, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, and I'm so excited to have you with us today, Lori, because some of the nuggets that you're going to give today, I know in the pregame show as we were talking, there's some really fabulous ideas and concepts that you want to share today, so I'm excited to hear what you got. Next up on our panel is the one and only, the man of wonderful colors in everything that he wears, and probably the most well-dressed guy in sales, stand alone. And I try to keep up with him, but quite frankly, I just don't have his repertoire of clothes. It just doesn't happen. But I want to introduce actually somebody who's near and dear to my heart, Jamie Shanks. I started following Jamie and his company, Sales for Life, which is also a social selling training organization, a few years ago. And to be honest with you and frank, many of the things that I learned was as a result of the concepts and information and webinars that Jamie has done. So definitely a pioneer in the social selling revolution, I'm going to call it. And so, Jamie, I'm super excited to have you here on the show. And also, a huge shout out to you on the first book, Social Selling Mastery, that was launched, that has been a very successful launch. And I've seen so much print about that in relation to social and social media. So fabulous job. Good job, man. I'm excited to have you here on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. And you forgot to introduce Lori as the nicest lady in sales, too.
Very good. That's right.
You're too kind.
Awesome. So, Jamie, same thing. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and also tell the audience, what was the first thing that you did when you woke up this morning?
So my name's Jamie Shanks. I'm the CEO of Sales for Life, and we've built the world's largest social selling methodology. It's now scaled to 300 global customers around the planet. And I happen to also be the only Canuck that is on this panel. So I am a Canadian. Our office is in Toronto at Yonge and Eglinton. What I do in the morning, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So usually I wake up with a pee-filled diaper on my face at 5:15 in the morning. We live in Aurora, which is an exoburb, a suburb of Toronto that takes about an hour and 15 minutes to get to our office in Yonge and Eglinton. So my wife runs an agency as well downtown. So between the two of us, we're up at 5 to 5:15 in the morning to get downtown at a normal hour. So it's usually wrangling up two monsters.
I know the feeling. My almost 3-year-old is out of diapers for the day, but still in at nighttime. Nonetheless, he's doing a pretty good job. So you'll be out soon, my friend. You'll be out soon.
I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right. Let's go ahead and get into our panel discussion here. And I want to take some time to go through about a couple of key questions that I think are very, very important for salespeople to think about, Lori and Jane. And let's go ahead and start out with you, Jamie. And we're going to ask you this question. How can you use your personal branding to help your company's brand and, in turn, sell more effectively?
One of the ways that I'm using it today as a CEO, and you got to remember that that's an evolving question over the last 40 years of history of our business. But the way I use it today is our customer success team and our knowledge transfer team, so that the individuals that are deploying training and consulting to our customers, the reality is they're building fantastic relationships with these customers. And traditionally, customer success has been measured on what's called a Net Promoter Score. It's a score out of 10 that gives you an indication of the likelihood that a customer would refer you to a net new customer or a new department within that organization. So we've taken that to heart, and in fact, we've put a sales quota on our customer success and knowledge transfer team to be able to get these customer referrals and introductions to new businesses. But where that plays a role for myself is I now am responsible as the CEO of actually making the ask. So I'm approaching our customers with my personal brand and asking, here's a list of companies and contacts that you have great relationships with. Can you please connect me to this business or refer us in and create this sales opportunity? And so now I'm able to leverage the brand that I've personally built to be a revenue source for the business, even though I'm not a natural quota-carrying sales professional in my business anymore. So my brand allows me to approach C-level executives at our customers and say, you know person A, can you introduce me to person B?
That's a great question, and we just had a technical glitch. I think Lori dropped off by accident here, Jamie. So I'm going to drill down a little on this question. Oh, you can hear it. Okay. So yeah.
You know what? I think my screen is frozen, but I'm on audio on the phone, so we'll keep going.
Well, then we'll roll with audio, Lori, and we'll bounce over to you. And so let's ask you that same question, Lori. For salespeople and marketers who are on this particular program, we want to understand how can they use their personal brand to help the company's brand and in turn sell more.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to set the record straight, say that I am 1/4 Canadian. my father's father is from Ontario, so happy to share that. And
all right, good.
You know, I have to say that when you build your brand, your personal brand as a sales professional online, one of the best things that I noticed over time is that people, buyers that you are working with, end up scrutinizing you less in terms of comparing you to other people. When you're a thought leader, when you've built some thought leadership, and it doesn't have to be, you know, a full-time job that you're doing this, and it's not anti-prospecting or anything like that. But when you've built a brand for yourself and it ties in with your company, it supports what your company is doing, you get less people asking for for references in a lot of cases. You know, I've just found that it's like people know you. They know you and they trust you. And that's probably one of the best things that I've seen, which you can directly tie into dollars, because it's giving you more chance, more opportunities to do business with buyers.
That's a great answer. And I know, Jamie, I think I've heard this coming from you before, but I think we've illustrated some of the great brands that we've seen, things that come to mind when you see the golden M, the arch. I think of McDonald's. And there's many, many other examples. Got Milk, you know, we know exactly what that's talking about, other than the fact that it says milk inside the name. And that really correlates to establishing yourself, Lori, what you said, establishing yourself with an online presence that people come to know who you are, what you're about, how you can help, and that you become a go-to resource, and in turn, it produces opportunity. And Jamie, this is a tee-off question. I know you've got a fairly large sales organization that definitely rolls with social selling and engagement, but can you give an idea, when you create your brand and you're doing these types of things for your sales organization and sales organizations that you've trained, which is 50,000 plus sales folks, you can correct me when I'm done, is there an expectation that as you develop this brand that these leads will start coming in, more of the inbound type of leads as a result of some of the branding that you might do?
Well, in our business, the answer is yes. In our customers' business, it works in a variety of different ways. So I'll answer it here for Sales for Life. So you have to imagine that 4 years ago, I couldn't book a meeting with a single company in Toronto. Nobody would know who I was. And the reality is I needed to figure out a scalable model of creating awareness for myself in the local Toronto market. That's where it really, my ideal customer profile and buyer was. So what I needed to do was get myself out there at both physical networking events, but also an online presence where I'm creating original thought leadership or curating thought leadership and packaging it for vice presidents of sales and vice president of marketing, which are my buyers. Long of the short is, fast forward it, and now in our business, 25% of all revenue created in our business comes inbound. And it's a combination of both content marketing that our sales and marketing professionals are disseminating out in the market, but as well, they're also participating in the branding themselves. They are the creators of some of these blogs and infographics and ebooks, and so those leads are coming inbound to them. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They know the more intellectual property they put out, the more they're receiving. And the same thing goes at enterprise software companies. We look at it where the intellectual property from their sales engineers are being crafted into original thought leadership or insights, which are then being shared through the sales team throughout their ecosystem or their buyers. And in turn, it's generating more inbound leads for their team. So it's not necessarily John the salesperson is creating John the salesperson inbound leads, but it's the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. As a collective whole, they're all working on a branding exercise that in turn is incrementally uplifting the inbound lead opportunity within their business.
Yeah, fabulous point. I totally agree with that, and I know on our company, we're much smaller than Sales for Life in terms of scale, but 100% of our leads come through inbound as a result of the output that we do on social, and that's a fabulous position to be in you're in sales. And Jamie mentioned 25%, it's 100%. If you could do that as a sales organization, as a salesperson, fabulous. I mean, that's one less call that you've got to make. Lori, let me move over to you. Here's a question, my dear. Why is your personal brand as important as your company brand?
Well, I started selling in my early 20s, so I've been in sales what I would call a long time. And back then, even then, long before the internet, we always learned to sell yourself first, your company second, and then your products and services third, because your integrity is all you have, and your brand should reflect who you are. So I always lead with myself first, and then and then the company. So I think, like Jamie was saying, 1 + 1 = 3. It's exponential when you have everybody on board, not doing the exact same thing, but in the same theme and the same realm, and knowing who the same target market is and understanding what's important to them. I'd love to see more people focus on the buyer and less on themselves and their company. That's, it's the one thing that we need to work on as sales professionals, really to be more buyer focused. But when you can do that and really do it, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And give us a tip. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jamie.
No, I was just going to say that's a fantastic point. I think about who's selling to myself or my buyer persona that I sell to. I have to emulate walking a mile in their shoes to the point where the buyer, like if your buyer is a chief financial officer, even though you as a sales professional have never been a CFO, you need to accumulate the insights and the knowledge and build trust in that community. And the only way you could do that is branding yourself as if the buyer feels that at one point in your life you must have been a corporate controller or you must have been an analyst, because your deep knowledge of financial record keeping or mergers and acquisitions or what have you, whatever a CFO cares about, they need to feel like you walked a mile in their shoes.
Yeah, that's a great point. Laura, you mentioned something about you would like to see salespeople become more buyer-focused. Give us one tip, if you would, on how do you do that? How do you become more buyer-focused? And then, Jamie, if you can think about that question as well.
Stop saying I and me and we, and start saying you. Just think first about the buyer, and that goes to calling someone, emailing them. It needs to be about their world, and don't ever have an interaction with a buyer that doesn't add value. You've got to add value in some way. People just don't have time otherwise. It doesn't matter how great you think you are, how great your company is. It doesn't matter. What matters is, how can you help me today with my issues?
Gotcha. Jamie?
I remember the first tactical thing I ever did was I drew a map as to who is my buyer. My buyer is Chief Revenue Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, as an example. So what I did is went on Twitter and I started developing lists of who they read. So I looked at our very first customer ever is in Toronto. They're called Vision Critical. Mark Bergen was the Chief Revenue Officer. And so I looked at who does Mark read about, think about, who are his sales idols, so to speak. And what I did is I created a list of influencers. Lori's on that list, Trish Bertuzzi, Joe Conrad, Ken Krogh, Anna Caselli. So I started developing a list of who is Mark reading about. And then I started reading the influencers' content, sharing their content. Of course, that comes into a branding exercise all on its own. That's how I put myself on that little map. But at the same time, I started understanding, what does Mark, the Chief Revenue Officer, care about? Compensation plans, territory models, whatever it is, I needed to learn about it before I could approach the customer.
Yeah, those are excellent tips, guys. And it really goes into the next question, which is, how can you create an authentic brand without being overly salesy? And one of the things that we see sometimes when salespeople are engaging online, especially with sharing of content, or with an in-mail or with a message, they're immediately going in for pitches, or they're only sharing content related to product information. So Lori and Jamie, what advice can you give to a salesperson to create an authentic personal brand, but not being overly salesy? Let's start with you, Lori.
Yeah, I'd like to first say salesy is not necessarily, in my world, salesy is not a bad thing. Bad salesy is bad. But being salesy is like something around sales to me. And so I think what you mean is being bad and making it sound slimy and inauthentic. And that happens in every medium that you use. Building your brand needs to be, again, it's the value that you bring to the world. It's the service you provide to others in exchange for currency of some type. So, I mean, I would say be authentic, be yourself, be transparent as you can be. And if you do that, people will see who you are, see the value that you add, and then work to get better at it every day.
Good. Jamie?
Yeah, for myself, I started to see, I had a kind of an epiphany or an aha moment where I recognized I needed to treat myself like I was a digital newspaper. And the way a newspaper would grow is by subscribers. And the more people that were in the network of that newspaper, the more influence it had, the more chance of it going viral, of landing in the laps of decision makers or advertisers. So I looked at it in the exact same manner. And so what I ended up doing was I approached my day-to-day routine of adding people into that network and sharing insights. Basically, Joe Rowley would say content concierge. All I was a gateway, like a newspaper, of taking in information, sharing information, taking in information, sharing information, and then leveraging influencers like yourselves to be able to say, okay, if I attach myself to that star, and start orbiting around that star, I naturally get associated with that star.
Yeah. Jamie, can I add?
Yeah, I don't want to put it any easier.
I was just going to add that that's a great way to build your brand. That's how I started blogging, 11 years ago, was that I started writing about other people because I didn't have my voice yet. And so I looked to see what other people were seeing and saying about our industry, and I think that's a brilliant observation.
Mm-hmm. To that end, I'm a horrible writer. I come from the sales background, 18 years of sales and sales leadership, and I feel like I'm a horrible writer. Now, I've gotten better over the years, but to Jamie's point and to Lori's point you guys just mentioned, one of the things that we did as well is we developed our own social personas, and in those social personas, one of them is obviously you're a champion for your company, right? But if your target market is, as an example, and ours is sales and marketing, then why not share content that you know is going to help the sales VP or help the CMO, as an example? And teeing off of Lori and Jamie's point, absolutely go to the content for key influencers, share their content that will only help your buyers, and at the same time, potentially get you noticed as well. Because influencers are going to say, hey, someone's sharing my content, and folks like Jamie, I know for sure, and Lori for sure, we share something, we tag you on a tweet, or we tag you on LinkedIn. What do you guys do?
Share it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ideally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you say thank you, and you engage, and then all of a sudden your followers start seeing who is this person that shared this particular piece of content. So I think that's another good tip as well. Last question here for our panel, because we've got a ton of questions here in the Q&A that we want to get to. Jamie, we'll start with you. Does it really work? Can you really drive revenue through having an online personal brand?
Okay, so I'm going to come back to tactical steps because I'm assuming that some of the audience are also entrepreneurs, presidents of businesses. They're VPs of sales of smaller businesses, and this is a tactic that we ended up using, and we grew our database from 0 to 250,000 readers a month. Okay, and this is simple organics. We never paid for lists. It was all done through organics. So if you look at it, I'm going to use a star. The star is going to be Lori Richardson. Okay, so the reality is, and this is a simple influencer marketing tactic, Lori is creating insights that are valuable to her ecosystem, which are also valuable to my ecosystem, and she has readers, and she has followers, and she has prospects that I want. So you develop a list of who are these influencers in your target market, and you start, as Lori and Mary were saying, you talk about them. Share about their stories, about their books, about their blogs. You curate their content, and you get noticed by Lori. Lori then associates that you're a good guy or you're a good company, and she starts sharing some of your insights. And what happens is her readership starts recognizing you orbiting her planet. What ends up happening is they start subscribing to your blogs, downloading your ebooks, and all that you end up doing, and sorry to say this, but you take from Lori's database and you put into your database. And you start doing this person by person, and all of a sudden you start enriching your own database of leads and opportunities. It was the fastest organic way that we knew that we'd be able to grow our business through influencers.
Great answer.
And it works because in 4 years, we used to have, on average, I remember even 3 years ago, we'd have only 500 unique people on our website in a month, and we're going to cross 250,000, and that's all done organically.
Oh. That's great.
Good job. Good. Lori, for you, that's a great answer, Jamie. Thank you. Does it really work? Can you really drive revenue through an online brand?
Yes. So I'll give a strategic example and a tactical example, just for fun. Strategically, we have kind of a trifecta, which is blogging, LinkedIn, Twitter. We use those in combination. We get leads, inbound leads every month, almost every week, and these are qualified business-to-business leaders who are interested in what we do. So absolutely, of those, we close probably, I'm going to say 40%, 35 to 40%, just because we had a lot of inquiries and some different things. But we do have normally a higher close ratio. Here's a tactical idea, which is, it was kind of fun. Last month, I did an event with Women Sales Pros. It was in Boston. And at the last minute, I realized that I needed $2,000 to pay for Wi-Fi in the event space, which I think is outrageous. But I needed a $2,000 sponsor. And one of my advisors went out on Twitter, and she said, who wants to get in front of 100 sales leaders at a Boston-based event looking for a sponsor for small dollars? Direct message me for more information. And I'm going to tell you, within 20 minutes, we had a sponsor. So,
wow.
Hey, it worked. And it's counterintuitive, because you think, oh, Twitter goes out to the world. It's a one-time thing. But, people look at people's feeds, and people are following, like Jamie was talking about, influencers. And so this, someone who followed them, it actually was a company called Octave, Phil Keene. A lot of people know Phil. Shout out to him. And he was like, yeah, this is great. So that's how fast things can happen.
Yeah, that's a great. I'll give just one thought here on this, and I think if salespeople think about their networks, Jamie talked about building your list, right? And so salespeople, we don't have lists that we keep track of. Usually, we don't put out an ebook and take the emails and those types of things. So how do we grow our lists? Well, think of your network as your list. You've got your LinkedIn connections, you've got your Twitter followers, and also one very other important channel. One of the top 3 marketing tactics for marketers in 2016 and going into 2017 is video marketing. Utilize video to be able to bring your followers, your buyers, to you, and leverage your network, grow your network, and pretend that's your list, right? One other great solution that I think is out there as well, something you might want to take a look at. I don't make a single dollar off this, but think of YouTube as well as OneMob. Some easy video marketing tools that could certainly help you in growing and attracting your buyers. All right, so I want to move on into the Q&A, Lori and Jamie, if that's okay with you guys, unless you have any other commentary on the questions. All right, we've got quite a few questions here in the queue, and this one's a really good one here that we're looking at. And the question is, let me just go back up and find here. What are 3 things a seller can do immediately to help begin or continue to build their online brand? I'm sorry.
I'll name one.
Ladies first. Ladies first.
Ladies first.
The first thing I thought of was to go to Twitter and make sure that you're monitoring your clients and your prospects and see what they're talking about. And it's so easy to do. You don't have to do anything. And then just bounce that, back into your conversations with them. Include it in your email. Lead with it when you're talking with someone or connecting with them.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. Socially surrounding your buyer, and then I'll add to the next piece is then using that socially surrounding your buyer to accumulate education, both for your own personal knowledge, so you can textualize your conversations, but also to be able to engage people socially. And so tactically, for myself, we use, for a free app on my mobile phone, I use Feedly. And Mario would ask me, what do I do every morning? I don't check my own emails. Those are other people's priorities. What I'm doing is I jump on Feedly and I find an article written by Lori or written by Trish or written by Mario, and I'm then curating it to share with my audience. And or as your company grows, we ended up investing in an employee advocacy tool. We use everyone's social, so that means all of my employees now have an aggregate of information. It's now sorted by buyer persona and buyer journey, and they can pre-select content to share with their audience. So that would be the next one. It's engaging in the market.
Yeah, and you know,
one other thing. Oh,
go ahead. I'm sorry, Lori. Go ahead, dear.
Build your brand. If you don't have if you're a sales professional and you don't have your own website, which I think you might want to, if you don't, then get that LinkedIn profile maxed out and buyer focused. It's really important.
Yeah. Those are great 3 tips. Jamie and Lori, one question for you. Many salespeople say, I've looked at my customer and they don't have anything that they've posted, nothing really of interest from a social perspective. How do I engage with that person if they're not there? And Jamie, I want to start with you because I know the answer to this question. I've heard it before, and I think it's a great answer. Let's start with you, and Lori will bounce over to you.
The reality is not every buyer is going to be, the average buyer on LinkedIn, the average CFO or Chief Information Officer is logging in for about 30 minutes, 60 minutes a week. So the reality is you may need to take online information to approach them offline, be where your buyer is. So for myself, if I'm trying to accumulate information on the buyer, you have LinkedIn as a source, you have Twitter as a source, you have Facebook as a source, you have Google Alerts. And so I'm socially surrounding that customer and learning about their business, their ecosystem, their competitors, and so forth. But I may take that online information and approach them in the medium that I can connect with them easiest. That might be the phone, that might be email, that might be knocking on their door. We actually had a lady walk in and give us a resume yesterday, like walked right into the office. So if you need to do an offline move, but taking online information, do it.
That's a great answer. Lori, any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say definitely, we call on C-level executives at Score Sales, and a lot of executives don't interact on socially in some industries, but a lot of the people right below them do. So I can build relationships with other people in the company. And I was just at the CEB Sales and Marketing event last week in Las Vegas, and one of the things that has changed is the number of buyers in a buying group or a buying decision. It's gone up.
Yeah.
Right, 6.8 now. 6.8 people. I don't know about the 0.8, but there's at least 6 people on a complex deal. Yeah. So, get to know who those other people are. Learn more about the company that way.
Yeah, those are great. So just in review, we mentioned a couple different tools. We said Feedly.com, Jamie, thank you.
Free.
Lori, and we do use Feedly. It's fabulous. And by the way, it's free, right? You can get the free version, and it works pretty darn good. Lori, you talked about your LinkedIn profile. Get it set up for branding to map to the modern buyer's journey. I think, Jamie, you mentioned it was Google Alerts, setting up Google Alerts for certain things that you want to hear from on topics. And Lori, love this one. Great. I'm going to steal it from you and on my own individual training. But if you can't get to the CEO or the CXO or whoever it is your target market, get to a level or 2 below and build relationships and socially surround yourself with those individuals. So great questions. All right. So, great answers, excuse me. Next question that we have here in the queue. This was a really good one. Jamie and Lori, to the salesperson and any sales leaders that are listening to this program as well, how much time per day do you recommend a salesperson spend on their online personal branding?
Well, I think their online personal branding is just part of their digital identity. So we would just call this a social selling routine because this is what we're teaching. Anything than 30 to 60 minutes a day is detracting from other core sales functions. So The reality is and we have an acronym that we use, which is called FEED. You have to be able to find, educate, engage, and develop your network and buyers within 30 to 60 minutes a day, and that could be a single deal, every day, right? So you're either an account-based seller, you're targeting a specific account, or you're a generalist seller where you're targeting an industry or a geographic node. But the reality is you're doing that in 30 to 60 minutes a day.
Yeah, I would add, think of yourself, like Jamie was talking about before, as a publisher. You're a sales professional, think of yourself as a publisher, and know that you can in 30 to 60 minutes. I think that's a good rule of thumb. I think 30 minutes for a lot of the sellers I've worked with has been plenty of time to do what they need to do to gain fresh insights and to work on their own brand. I know for me, when I started in sales, I was in my early 20s and I was a single mom, and I made time after work to learn my trade. And this is a craft. It's not science and it's not art. It's a blend of everything. And so, do you want to be a good violinist? Then you practice, right? So you make time for this, and you can build your brand in off hours.
Yeah, that's a great point. We recommend for us, for those listening, how much time? 30, 30, 30. 30 in the morning, 30 in the afternoon, 30 in the evening. So take in those pieces of advice to those that are out there and try it, use it, see what works for you. And by the way, I'm going to say something that you probably get, kind of get grossed out on, but I actually use this in my keynotes. Look, the reality is our buyers are taking this device, unfortunately, every day to the bathroom with them, and you probably are too. So spend your bathroom time finding out more information about your buyer and socially surrounding. So that's real talk right there. That's reality. All right, I think we have time for one more question here, and we've just got maybe a couple minutes left here, Jamie and Lori. So I'll take this question here. This is a really good one for those that are sales folks that are like, hey, I'm trying to, but my management won't. Or for leaders that are like, I'm trying to, but my leadership team above me doesn't get it. How do I get management buy-in for social selling? Lori, let's start with you.
Well, I had 23 managers in my sales career. So I've seen the awesome and the awful. And I never left it to my company or my management to chart my course. I always did my own thing, and I did the revenues to justify it. So I'd make time to do it, whether I did it during my work hours or not. It's just part of my mission as someone who is excited about the industry that I'm in, excited about what I'm doing. It's just going to naturally happen. So I say do it anyway.
I love it. I love that answer. Jamie?
Yeah, and this is the ultimate form of groundswell selling. So if you're an individual quota-carrying sales professional, what you need to recognize is that in any corporation, we're 20 employees or if you're 20,000, you need to build business cases. And so for us, we may take a division or a country and build a business case there to spiral to the next country. But what you're able to do as an individual is recognize that you need to measure leading, current, lagging indicators. So where were you when you started this journey? What are you doing as an activity level to change your course of your brand? And what is the sales outcomes? If you simplify it to something as basic, so basically a pre and a post and in between, you're showing how you're doing this, like what are the activities, what is the incremental sales pipeline increase, because in reality, this is all that your leadership's going to care about is incremental pipeline increase. If you collect that information, it's most likely going to take you 90 days to collect sales pipeline increase and about 6 months to even a year to be able to understand revenue impact, which will allow you return on investment. Then you have a business case, which you can then submit to leadership to say, empirically, this is where I was, this is where I ended up, and these are the actions that got me here. And that's how it can scale.
And even activity, Jamie, right? If I can get 5 meetings through social connections that I'm making, and somebody wants me to make 100 cold calls, I got 5 meetings. So, you know, what's the bottom line?
Excellent point. In fact, I know we're doing a webinar, to your point, Lori, about Just Do It. I'm doing a webinar next month, and the title is You've Been Promoted from Sales Rep to CEO. And it's really owning your business and taking control of your business and just doing it. And I cannot understate the value of, you know, how do you get it done? You just do it. You own your own business. You're the CEO of your small business. If you have $1 million quota, guess what? You're a small business owner. That's a pretty darn big quota. Well, listen, Jamie, you know, Lori, I love working with you guys. You guys are absolutely fabulous and a juggernaut in the industry. Guys, those are listening, connect with Jamie on LinkedIn. Find him at Jamie T. Shanks on Twitter. Follow him. Absolutely follow the amazing, wonderful, beautiful, and the kindest individual, Lori Richardson at Score More Sales, and connect with her as well on LinkedIn. These guys are juggernauts in the industry as well as experts in the industry. So without any further ado, I want to throw this back over to the CPSA, and they're going to close out with a couple different comments and some information that you want to stay for. So hang tight. Rupalin?
So on behalf of the Canadian Professional Sales Association, we really want to thank our moderator, Mario, our panelists, Lori and Jamie, and of course our audience for attending today's webinar. Should you have any questions at all, please contact salessuccess@cpsa.com. And for those of you who would like a video copy of this webinar, please stay tuned as this will be emailed to you shortly. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.